Good morning. Okay, so today we are working through question. Oh, actually, let me just get my obsidian. Okay. Today we are working through question. Which question? 1A in paper 2. You will. I'm going to give you a moment to just quickly download the paper in case you haven't already downloaded it. It is on. I've pasted a link to easily download it in the description. If you need me to resend that link, just tell me. While you do that, I'm just opening my Obsidian here. I've been kind of badly organized this week with my notes. Ah, there we go. Okay, so I just want to get my thing open here. I'm gonna just copy and paste that. Today is one of those days. What a hectic day. Sorry, it has disappeared. So I'm just looking for it here. I hope I didn't accidentally delete it. Hmm. Sorry. I'm just gonna re-download it. Okay, so we are starting with our paper 2. Our paper 2 is all about writing, as I'm sure you are aware. Okay, found it. Fabulous. Sorry, guys. I don't know why I'm struggling with everything today. Okay, now I can share my screen. I'm so sorry. Fabulous. So here is our paper 2. Our paper 2 is all about writing, and I know that seems very simple, but yeah, it's honestly, people think that they know how to do this a lot better than they usually do. Um, Often I sometimes fall into the trap of thinking that people are better at this than they are. And so I sometimes get quite shocked at the responses I get from my students um, when they're working on this. And now, this paper that we chose was specifically chosen because um, I liked the fact that it was using some kind of narrative, which isn't something that I often see in a question 1. Um, Now, let's read the question together. Um, and let's explore it. So it says your teacher has asked you to write the opening of a story called The Message about finding a piece of paper on your doorstep with a handwritten message on it. Write the text for the opening of your story using no more than 400 words. In your writing, create a sense of drama and suspense. Okay, so we want no more than 400 words. We want to create drama and suspense. Okay, so we aren't given anything to read. The story is called The Message, and we just need to write the opening. So the fact that we need to write the opening means we don't have to have the whole narrative structure, okay? But we should definitely be alluding to things, making reference to things that might happen later on, and it needs to be an opening of a story, and so it needs to um, capture the audience's attention. Now, they've told us that it's about finding a piece of paper on your doorstep with a handwritten message on it. So we need to keep that message clear, that idea very clear. Now we've got 400 words and we have to write we get 15 marks for it. Okay. So we're going to use very different skills to what we were using for our other assignment for our paper 1. We are using the fact that we are still using the fact that we are experts and have become experts on language and linguistics. Okay. We are also so we've still got that awareness, but it needs to be interesting. It needs to be fun. Okay. So I've got a couple of questions for you. My first question, and you can post this in the chat, what is the function of an opening in a story? Okay. Let me put that.
I know you hate like.
Oh, just pause quickly. Just pause quickly.
Okay.
There we go. Now you're on my headphones, not my speakers. Sorry about that. So you said, I hate. Okay, so it's okay, so it sets the basis. It kind of introduces a lot of themes and ideas. It captures the audience's attention. All of these make sense, and I agree with all of those. Now, being that that's the case, how what are the techniques that we would use? How do we do that? So Shadow said it draws the reader in and makes them curious as to what is happening, often by withholding information or starting in the middle of the action. Okay. So yes, that is something it does that is not quite the function, but that is a technique used, and I like that. Now, if we look at that, what are some good openings that you've read in stories? Like, what was a story, a novel or something that you read that really captured you? Okay, the first. Okay. Okay. Okay, so first page of the book, we've got all this introduction. This is of Percy Jackson for those who weren't in this list. So first page of the book in Percy Jackson, we've got this introduction to who he is, the fact that he's quite young. We've got some mystery being added, right? We've got a bit of character building. We've got it sets up the scene. It gives us the setting. Um, so Shadow said the Maze Runner had a really interesting opening as it started by describing the confusion that Thomas felt when he woke up in the box with no memory. Okay. And so it's an interesting opening because it creates some kind of mystery. It creates some kind of intrigue. Okay. So that's good. Now, why do we read on after the first few sentences of a story? Oh, and then Shadow said it doesn't even tell us his name until a bit later in the second paragraph. So why do we read on after the first few sentences of a story? Like, why do we keep going? Okay, so it sets up something that we're going to want to answer. So the first few sentences are really there to create questions, or often, often the first few sentences create questions in my mind. They make me think, what is this about? I do sometimes pick up a book, I read a chapter, and I'm like, this is not a vibe. And then I try really hard to actually make the book work for me, and I just cannot get into it. And so the other day, Katashka was like, okay, well, just skip the chapter. If the chapter's boring, skip the chapter. If the book intrigues you, you can come back to that chapter, but don't waste your time reading something that is not capturing you. You've got lots of different books you want to read. You don't have to stick with this one that you want to read. And so, yeah, I have felt like sometimes when I read your stuff, like my students' writing, I read past the first sentence because I kind of have to mark your work. But it is a struggle sometimes because you guys aren't always aware of the fact that you have an audience, which is me in a lot of cases when you're writing for me. I am your audience and I need to be engaged. Um, so what is it that makes an opening reflective? So now we've said what makes it effective is if it creates some kind of intrigue, if it poses questions, if it gets us wanting more. Okay. So another thing we could do is like beautiful imagery, beautiful ideas. We could have some kind of, as Shadow says, not introducing the character's name could create the type of intrigue that we would open it, we would look at it, and we want to read on just so we can know their name. Who is this person? Okay. With my IGCSE students, for the language, I built a like language course around Dracula, and I called it the Vampire Archives. And so we read a piece of Dracula, and then we analyze the grammar. But something I found was that if I had told them it was Dracula, they probably wouldn't have read it. But because I was giving it in little snippets, they were really, really into it. So by the time Dracula was introduced, they were like, oh, okay, well, this is pretty cool. And so sometimes a book might really intrigue us, but because of preconceived notions, we might not want to read it. And so there's all these things that we can do. So using some kind of cliche can make someone not read on, right? So as much as we must be aware of what makes people read on, we must be aware of what makes people not read on. Okay, so now you've probably been thinking about what is it that makes us an effective opening. So what we've said, it creates some kind of suspense. Okay, or mystery or something like that. So can you name specific elements that build tension? And type these out because we're going to use them later. So what do you think creates suspense? Can you name specific elements that build tension? Oh, thank you for posting there. I appreciate it. Okay, so we've got syntax features like ellipsis, hyphenated phrases, writing something in all caps. Okay, yes, so those are features that we've got. What else do we have? Let's think like right at the beginning of a book, like first 1 or 2 pages. What are the things that are capturing us? And maybe not even a book, like a short story. What are the things that are building this tension? So earlier on, Shadow said something that we do is withholding information starting in the middle of the action. I really love when things start in the middle of the action. And you guys might know I'm reading Mistborn at the moment. And something I'm really enjoying is at the beginning of each chapter, reading Mistborn for the manyth time, for lots of time. I've read it a bunch of times, but at the beginning of each chapter, there is like an extract from a book that the Lord Ruler is using or has written. Okay, so um, so at the beginning of the book, we've got this extract, and then like you don't know right up until maybe halfway through the book, through the first book, what is happening and why it's happening. So it's only later on that we find out, okay, this is the Lord Ruler speaking, and it's actually his journal. And it gives you so much insight, but it builds that mystery. Like, where is this coming from? What's it all about? And it's a very simple technique. Someone says, atmosphere, the mood and tone will affect how readers feel when they read your book. Amatula. So yes, so the atmosphere is created, but how do they create this atmosphere? Rhetorical question, Shadow says. Cobble says sound devices, so sibilance or plosive language. Definitely we're using that, and I think that's a very key thing to be aware of. But I'm missing, these are like the linguistic features, the technical things we're doing. Okay. Let's just see what Sydney says here. The interactive features, such as the way that the narrator is talking to the audience, are they talking in a very childish manner, or are they using language that creates some kind of foreshadowing? Okay, so the mood and tone will affect how readers feel when they read your book. There's something I wanted to say on that. How do we create, right at the beginning of a book, how do we create this atmosphere? Do we do it through setting? Do we do it through dialogue? I want to see more of these storytelling techniques. So yes, these are great for just general things, general ways to create intrigue, but I want to see what are the storytelling techniques that will draw the reader in, that will create this intrigue, although intrigue itself is a storytelling technique. Yeah, we're trying to create tension. Okay, so having the environment reflect the character's emotions. Yes, I know what you're talking about, and I cannot think of the term for it either. If anyone does know what the term for that is, where the environment reflects, mirrors the emotional state of the character. So Shadow says, perhaps by characterizing the landscape or people that are first noticed in a unique way. So bringing some um, unique attributes. So I also think talking like the way that we're talking to the audience, just going back to that, um, how are they talking to the audience are like I found Narnia when I first read Narnia, I was like an adult. And I didn't enjoy it much when I first read it because I knew the story quite well. Katashka's really into it, but I didn't know how to respond to the fact that it felt very much like a bedtime story. Whereas something like Peter Pan um does not feel like a bedtime story. And Peter Pan actually happens to be um my favorite book. Okay, one of my favorite books. Probably my favorite book. I don't know. But I love Peter Pan. It changed my life. Um and they approach the audience very differently. Um so now our story requires us to create a sense of drama and suspense. We want drama and we want suspense. Okay. It must be no more than 400 words. So, what strategies could you use to achieve that? Okay, so formatting it in a very specific way can keep the idea you're going for very focused. Shadow says probably on the previous question, end on a climax. Yes, but we're doing the beginning of the story, hey? So sorry, I lost what you said. Can you just say that again, Sydney? Mm-hmm. Mm. Oh, and that kind of like as the books go on, so as the Percy Jackson series goes on, the sentences become longer, the language structures become more complex, and so we can build that, we can structure it like that. But how exactly is that creating drama and suspense? I'm in a lesson. Uh, okay. Okay, so having short and long paragraphs, um, like having like juxtaposing the short and long, having the bit of long, bit of short, and that does create a bit of drama, yes. Um, Shadow says we can start with a light-hearted tone and become more serious later, but I mean we've got limited space. Um, Foreshadowing can be used in the opening to predict tension. Um, yes, absolutely. Um, you guys have some brilliant points here. Okay. Now let's quickly look at what is suspense and drama. Okay. So I want to look at it from the perspective of the setting. Okay. Um, I want to look at the message, so setting, message, and the environment around the message, and then the message being unexpected. So let's say this note was found in broad daylight. Okay. So let's just say this note was found in broad daylight. That is going to make it a lot less creepy and create less suspense than if it was found in the middle of the night, right? If you go out and someone just knocked on your door at 3 a.m. and you open your door and there's a note, it's got a very different feel to coming home at lunchtime and there's a note on your doorstep. Okay, and this is going to affect the mood and the atmosphere. Okay, Amatullah says you can challenge the senses. Absolutely. So can you describe for me what you mean by challenging the senses? So how exactly would you challenge those senses? Because that's great idea, but practically, how do we do that? Okay. Now, obviously, now with the darkness or whatever, the setting is going to contribute to the suspense. Okay. Let's say it is nighttime and there is a loud party next door versus it's nighttime and it is totally silent. That will also, this is to do with senses, that will also affect how we interpret the note, right? So then we've got the characters, right? So different characters are going to respond to the note in different ways. If my son walks into the house and there's a note on the floor, he's like, look, there's a note on the floor. If Elseth walks in and sees there's a note, she will read the note first and then tell us there was a note. If Enoch sees it, he would say, there is a letter for us. He even calls receipt from the shop a letter. Okay. So now this would obviously impact our language. It would impact the body language, the inner thoughts. And then these can be used to create fear. It could be used to create excitement, confusion. We could also use dialogue and how they communicate with people in that moment, like how dialogue is happening to create this suspense and drama. Okay. So I want to just explore something that we mentioned previously. Can you guys just fill this in for me because we're going to use this just now? Oh, I see people have posted here. Sorry, I wasn't on that page. You can confuse the reader by giving them enough information to hint at some danger, but by withholding certain information in order to keep them confused. I don't know if confused is the right word because we don't want them to be confused. We want them to be intrigued. I suppose we might want to confuse them sometimes. So we could plant a red herring or something. So Amatsula says, for example, sound can create mood, atmosphere, and tension by adding noise. Okay. Yes. So sound is going to be able to create that. For instance, loud noises are going to, depending on the person, could make someone jump, or it could make someone angry, or it could make someone get into a party mood. Depending on the person, depending on the setting, right? So it all works together. All of these things interact with each other. Okay. So Now, we can then not reveal things immediately, but just like Sydney said, we can use some short clip sentences to create to switch up the pace so that we can create that suspense. Okay, so I want to just show you a piece quickly. Just look for it. Give me a sec. Okay. The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. The people of the village began to gather in the square between the post office and the bank. Around 10 o'clock, in some towns there were around 10 o'clock. In some towns there were so many people that the lottery took 2 days and had to be started on June 26th. But in this village, where there were only about 300 people, the whole lottery took only about 2 hours. So it could begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and still be through in time to allow the villagers to get home for noon dinner. The children assembled first, of course. School was recently over for the summer, and the feeling of liberty sat uneasily on most of them. They tended to gather together quietly for a while before they broke into boisterous play, and their talk was still of the classroom and the teacher, of books and reprimands. Bobby Martin had already stuffed his pockets full of stones, and the other boys soon followed his example, selecting the smoothest and roundest stones. Bobby and Harry Jones and Dickie Delacroix, the villagers pronounced this name Delacroix, eventually made a great pile of stones in one corner of the square and guarded it against the raids of the other boys. The girls stood aside, talking among themselves, looking over the shoulders at the boys, and the very small children rolled in the dust, or clung to the hands of their older brothers or sisters. Now, if we look at that, right, that is an opening of a short story called The Lottery. I just want to read what Shadow says here. If the message isn't immediately clear, it can either cause the reader to feel curious or to lose interest. And I agree with that. Now, this piece here, this is an opening of a story, well-known story. And we've got this mention of a lottery, but I felt intrigued. The first time I read this, I felt intrigued the whole way through about this lottery. Like, what is this lottery? What's it all about? Why are the children involved? Like, why is this lottery such a big deal? What are they going to win? What's it about? And so as the story progresses, so do you guys feel any sort of tension or anxiety in the setting? Does the setting feel weird to you at all? What makes it feel weird? It's almost too idyllic. And I feel like I just don't trust how idyllic the scene is. Okay. And how, yeah, I can't quite put my hand on it. Put my finger on, put my hand on. I can't quite put my finger on what it is that makes me very uncomfortable with the setting. But it's that discomfort that causes me to read on. And the thing that made me initially read on um was this lottery. It's taking people 2 days. Okay. Um, Now, the people of the village began to gather in the square between the post office and the bank around 10 o'clock. In some towns, there were so many people that the lottery took 2 days to be started on the 26th. But in this village, there were only about 300 people. So we've got only about 300 people. We say it only takes 2 hours. But even though it only takes 2 hours, look how long we are getting to be told what the lottery is. So the fact that they're not introducing what this lottery is, even though it is such a short thing for them, kind of makes me uncomfortable. Okay. Um so the children assembled first. Okay, now the children are getting involved in a lottery, which is kind of odd. Okay. Then we've got some information about the the villagers, the kids, and how it builds that setting. Um, but then we've got they tended to gather quietly for a while before they broke into boisterous play. So the fact that the children are gathering quietly shows that they're uncertain, they're not sure. Okay, the word uneasily, the feeling of liberty sat uneasily. Okay, using liberty instead of freedom. It's it's jarring. Okay, so now let me just check where I was. So your story. Okay, I want you to think for a moment. I want to take maybe 5 minutes to think about these questions. How will you begin your story? What's the first thing you want the reader to know? Okay. What is the purpose in the opening line? Do you want the reader to feel unsettled, curious? Do you want them to feel afraid? How will you convey this feeling using specific words? What kind of imagery or description will you use to create the right tone? Now, I'm going to actually put this in my Discord. Should I put it in the Discord or on the YouTube chat? Okay. Okay. So I want you to answer these 3 questions for me. Oh, you can write it in your notes before you write. Actually, yeah, no, send it on here. Send it on here so you guys can see each other's things. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, send it on here. Reply to it. Okay, cool. I see. So if you're responding, um, it's interesting to talk about the weather first. Why would you talk about the weather first? Mm, okay. Okay. So, um, just adding this weather thing makes it feel it's an interesting form of contrast. I like that. Um, so sunny weather versus dreary people, or gloomy weather versus idyllic atmosphere. And I mean that the idyllic atmosphere can make people feel very uncomfortable. And I mean, that's what we've got in that piece. We've got this idyllic atmosphere, which, if you read the rest of the story, it's quite rough. Okay, the time frame. Why would you go for time frame, Shadow? Okay, so do you mean just so in terms of time frame, are you meaning like it's set in the 60s or whatever, or do you mean just tense because you say whether it is currently happening or has happened? So then wouldn't you just use change the format of your verbs? I want to feel comfortable as if nothing is wrong so that they can feel tension building later. Okay, so both of you want to create this jarring thing where we're not immediately jumping into the drama. But now, how long are we going to keep it at that? Because we've got 400 words, and I know 400 words seems long, but I mean, this is an opening to a story, so you need to be aware that the story, the longer story, should be about at least 3,000 words if you were to write it out. So, yeah, how long are you going to hold this idyllic setting? Um, mhm. Yeah. Okay, so no, that makes sense. Like you want to do about 100 words. It just it depends how you handle it, and I'm excited to see how you're going to handle it. Um, so Shadow says I would describe the weather changing to indirectly foreshadowing that something is going to be happening soon, perhaps to show some inner turmoil. Okay. Um, Shadow says, okay, sometimes, for example, my story took place on a Monday, but then suddenly changed to a few days later in an instant. Okay. I really like how you guys are both approaching this idyllic setting. It's very interesting to me. Okay. Just jump back here. Now, I want you to take a moment and craft your opening paragraph. Okay. So write your whole paragraph. You don't have to post it here. Just write it in your own document. Yeah, I know you've already done this, Shadow. I'm just gonna run to the bathroom quick, okay? Okay. So, finding a note. Why is that specific moment important? What does that suggest to the reader? Um, before the reader knows what's on the note, like the lottery, before the reader knows what the lottery is, how was the lottery made mysterious? So before someone even knows what's on the note, how can you make that note feel more mysterious? Okay. And then also think about the perspective that you're using. So why did you choose the perspective that you chose? Why was that what you went for? So why did you go for um Just to see what's up with the stream here. Hello. Did you not read my message in your voice channel? Just go check what my message said in your voice channel. Okay. So this is the question. Write the text for the opening of your story using no more than 100 words in your writing. Create a sense of drama and suspense. So your teacher has asked you to write the opening of a story called The Message, about finding a piece of paper on your doorstep with a handwritten message on it. Now, when we're looking at, just remember, if you're choosing first person, do it intentionally. Think about why you're doing it. Okay. How does this tension affect the, how does, whether it's first person or third person, affect the tension? How is it going to affect the suspense? Okay. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screens. Well, I can probably share my screen. No. I'm going to stop sharing my screen while I type. And I'll just post the question here for you guys on Discord. Those who just joined. That is a good question. Since the instruction says that you find a note on your doorstep, doesn't that mean that you have to be first person? You're teaching. I'm not sure. Give me a moment. That is a really good question. Like, I wouldn't have noticed that. I'm just trying to think of a way to do it without. Because I feel like okay. the thing is, you're right that it does make it more intense to bring that proximity. And by saying your doorstep, it really does suggest a personal connection to the narrative. Um, and it's we do want the reader to be placed in the protagonist's shoes. But I mean, then what stops us from using second person's second perspective, second person voice? Um, so in terms of narrative perspective, the author can still choose between first, second, or third person. Um, I I believe it's a very interesting idea to be caged into a first person. Um, Let me just check something else. Sick. Yeah, I looked at a couple of sources now, and I don't think that it is strictly requiring a first person thing. Um, let's just see what Shadow says here. Sorry, I missed a lot of what you said. Because I feel like it would be a good way for the examiner to make sure that the student understood the assignment. The thing is, that assumes that the examiner is trying to trick you. The assignment is not trying to trick you with a your thing. That's not the goal. Um, the assignment is not to get caught up in that. The assignment is to communicate in a way that creates this drama. We want to communicate in a way that creates suspense. We want the story to have narrative elements. We want linguistic features to be very clear. What else do we want? Like, we want to maybe build some ambiguity. I want to see that you understand pacing. Okay. Now our objectives is to engage the reader immediately. Okay. We want to use linguistic choices that are going to bring mystery, curiosity, and tension. Um, yeah. But I don't think that your examiner is setting out to test you. I don't think the exam is setting out, or not test you. I don't think the exam is setting out to trip you up. They want to see that you know how to create suspense. And if you're going to fail the whole assignment because because you didn't interpret it quite in that way, it's not really capturing the message or the heart behind the assignment. Okay, so second person. Okay, so someone asks if the main character is the narrator, then is that a combination of third and first person? Um, okay, so it depends. If the main character is the protagonist, um, and the narrator is the protagonist, then it's really just like Twilight vibes. Um, and it would still be first person because it's from their perspective. Um, Now, if it was written in third person, it would be written from the outside of the story. So first person is written from the inside of the story, third person is written from the outside of the story. Okay. And second person is written from you are the main character. You yourself, the reader is the main character. The reader is the protagonist. It's written from your perspective. So it's going to be you, your stuff like that. You walk out the room. So tell me quickly, what do your messages say? Like, what's your message on your piece of paper? Okay, so it's a blank piece of paper. But then why would it be called the message? Like I would understand it being called the message if it was a blank piece of paper with a bloody thumbprint on. Because that would definitely send me a message. The message it would send me is lock your doors. Turn on that outside camera. Because what would then distinguish it as a message? How would you know it's not just a piece of paper that blew onto your doorstep? If it's blank. You know what I mean? Okay, those on Discord. Actually, I'm gonna. If you are struggling, I'm going to give you. Okay, so a good example of this would be the black spot from the Pirates of the Caribbean. What was the black spot from the Pirates of the Caribbean? I don't remember at all. If you need some help just kind of getting yourself started, um, here are here's a suggested prompt for getting started. And like while you're writing, think aloud. Say it to yourself. How do those word choices affect how you're feeling? The black mark on the piece of paper that meant they were marked for death. Oh, I remember that. And so, yeah, there was a mark on it, and it does send a message. What did you use for your message, Shadow? No, you don't have to introduce a message in a later paragraph. It's not a problem to do that at all. I was just giving some of my IGCSE students are here as well, so I'm just giving them some extra help. Um, so what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to just send you a link again to the Discord walkthrough. Okay. And I'd like you to post your thing here so that not tomorrow, I will only see you next week again. I'll send you emails about the dates and times because I am taking the weekend off for my daughter's birthday. But I will send you, in our next session, we're going to do our reflective commentary. And that's something that people don't cover enough, including me. I don't cover it enough. Eventually, Sydney was like, Marinus, you need to cover this now. So I'm going to send you. I sent you the link there. Add your thing to the Discord, because I'd like us all to read each other's. So read each other's pieces. I know it's kind of scary, but I think you'll be fine. And then post that, and then in our next session we will read and we'll do a reflective commentary. Now, reflective commentary is basically just a text analysis, but it's reflective. So it's a reflective essay instead of a comparative essay combined with analysis. It's a reflective essay combined with analysis. Okay. Yes. Do any of you have any questions before we head out for the weekend? I know it's only Wednesday and we're heading out for the weekend, but I've got a race on Tuesday. Very excited. Rain, sleep. I suppose you can go sleep. Go for it. Okay, no one has any questions. Cool. Okay, I will catch you guys next time. Bye.